So, I was on holiday visiting my family, and a friend of my cousin, let's call her Anita, came up to me. She is in her late 30s and said she really wants to lose weight, but keeps losing motivation. She knows through my cousin that I've been helping people lose weight for 7 years now, and those entire 7 years and more, she's been trying to lose weight, but it's constantly up and down, with the trend gradually going up. We talked about a lot of things, and then afterward, as I was reflecting on the conversation, it reminded me of when I was losing weight and how overcomplicated I was making weight loss, just like this friend of my cousin's was. And hey, I get it. I used to be way heavier. I struggled for years to get to my goal size. I've been overweight, I've been skinny fat, I've tried intermittent fasting, low carb, low fat, insanity workouts, you name it, and I've tried it. In my final year of weight loss though, things finally clicked. I have been maintaining 20% body fat since then. It's been 9 years. I've taught my method to more than 900 people successfully, so my method works not just for me. How do I know this? We run a survey every month, and consistently 97% of people say they'd be disappointed if my weight loss program Badass Body Boss disappeared. 72% of whom say very disappointed. For context, when a service has 40% of customers saying they'd be very disappointed, that's the point where VCs start pouring in money to scale the startup to the sky. And so I think I'm in a position to offer some potentially useful advice as not only someone who has been through the ringer trying to lose weight, but also helped so many people do the same. So let's have a heart-to-heart with my cup of Earl Grey tea here. Grab a tea of your favorite beverage yourself, and here we go with my honest advice to anyone who is struggling to lose weight. Point number 1, you don't have a motivation problem, you have a clarity problem. Listen, I firsthand know the motivation roller coaster. I would also get determined about losing weight, maybe because it's New Year's or I just weighed myself. At first, it all goes well. I'm losing weight, I'm sticking to my plan, but then either weight loss slows or the plan starts feeling like a chore, or both. I start feeling this is taking way too long. And then inevitably, a curveball gets thrown, like work gets busier, holidays happen, or something else happens, and it snowballs into the wheels coming off my plan, and I'm down to, I'll start fresh next week. Meanwhile, I'm feeling guilty the whole week, which ironically makes getting back on it even more difficult. While Anita was describing the same cycle as her own story, my cousin had walked in, and after listening to it, she said, "Yeah, I'm not disciplined either." This took me by surprise. My cousin wakes up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast and lunch for her entire family, including separate meals for her mother-in-law, who is on a different food plan for a medical condition she has. She then takes her daughter to school, she goes to work as a teacher, then after school she works on her business. Then she picks up her daughter, does homework with her, and makes dinner for the house. Then she works some more on her business before bed. And she does this every single day and has been doing it for years. I'd say that's someone with a lot of discipline and motivation. I actually pointed this out to my cousin, who then laughingly replied, "Well, I can't leave my family starving, my students failing exams, or my business partner overwhelmed, now can I?" These were her daily motivators out of the valley of despair. See, whenever we start on any difficult change, it has 5 phases. The first is uninformed optimism. This is the determined start to lose weight and a plan we feel optimistic about. The second is informed pessimism. You start seeing the plan isn't going exactly like you expected. Either weight loss has gotten slower or the habits feel like a chore. The third is the valley of despair. All the pain is felt of skipping your favorite foods and going to the gym, and the benefits feel far away or less important. There's also a fast way to end the discomfort. Return to uninformed optimism by starting something new. This is where me, Anita, my cousin, and I'm guessing you too have probably given up many times. But if the plan is solid and you push through, you get to informed optimism. This is where your actions are showing expected results and your new thoughts and actions have become routine. And finally, we get to phase 5, success and fulfillment. At this point, you're ready for your next difficult change. This is maintenance for weight loss. What gets us out of the valley of despair is feeling real-life consequences daily of not doing the things we want to do. For my cousin, the consequences of starvation, failed exams, and an angry business partner were daily reminders pushing her out of the valley of despair and onto the success slope for her daily packed routine. But she and Anita didn't have any in-the-face consequences of the sort for weight loss. Like, sure, if they overate, that has no real-world consequence. Like, it's not like they'd suddenly gain 20 pounds in a day. So I asked them, are there things you're putting off to after you get to your goal size? Anita rattled off a whole list, allowing herself to be in more photos and videos, wearing a swimsuit instead of t-shirt and shorts on beach vacations, learning bachata, doing day hikes with her kids, and the list just went on and on. I said, great. How about you take one of these, make it a scaled down activity you could do every week, and commit to doing it every week. For example, make it a point to take photos or videos with your kids every week, or go for a short 1-hour hike every weekend, or sign up for a bachata class now. It could even be a combination, like taking photos with her kids while on a hike. This way, 2 things happen. 1, she's not putting off her life for some far off future, like she has been for more than 7 years now while yo-yo dieting. And 2, these will viscerally remind her why she is losing weight in the first place. It's to wear a swimsuit or that cute dress with confidence. It's to enjoy beach vacations. It's to feel sexy dancing bachata. It's to hike and be outdoors with her kids. None of us want to lose weight for the sake of losing weight. We want to lose weight to live our dream life. I really like the point Bill Perkins makes in his book Dive at Zero. There are things we would do only in a certain decade in our life. For example, Bill's friend took 3 months off and took out a high interest loan at the age of 22 to backpack around the world. On paper, this seems like a terrible financial decision. So Bill didn't do that. His friend, of course, loved it and everything he got to learn and see. And then in his 30s, when Bill had the money to backpack around the world, he wasn't able to do it because he had more responsibilities, a wife, kids, mortgage, and so on. And even more, he didn't want to do it anymore because that era of his life when that would have been fun was gone. Similarly, for me, I know that there are certain travel experiences that are better done now than when I'm over 60. Like I was camping in the Sahara Desert a week ago, which is not as easy on the body as, say, navigating the museums in Paris. So I'm front-loading experiences like horse riding across Mongolia, biking across Vietnam, to now in my 40s, while leaving walking and bus trips to my 50s and up. So while our life expectancy may be 80 or more, the deadline for certain experiences is so much sooner than that. Like Anita gets super clear on what is the life you want to live that you're putting off after weight loss and bring it to the present. If you need prompts to help you along, I've created a small guide for you that's linked in the description below. So after Anita agreed to bring one of those goals as a weekly activity, she and I, both turned to look at my cousin, who at first just stared back at us. Then she said, be more active, clothes would fit better, and prevent future medical problems. I was like, okay, what exactly does being active look like for you? She said, walk more. And I was like, okay, why? Why do you want to walk more? She said, I don't know, seems like the healthy thing to do. I was like, okay, fair enough. So walk more. What about clothes fitting better? Are you feeling like less confident or not beautiful in your clothes right now? Do you feel like you're not yourself? To which she thought about it and she was like, no, not really, just it would be better. I was like, okay, you said preventing future medical problems. What symptoms are you feeling now? She said, none right now. I'm kind of worried about the future though. And then I said, okay, has imagining these future medical problems stopped you from eating an extra donut or anything else? She was like, well, not really. So you can see that my cousin's life won't actually change much even if she lost weight. Now, does this mean that my cousin should stop losing weight? It depends. Can she keep digging in to flesh out how her life would be significantly different after she loses weight? If she can discover a compelling different future life, then weight loss will be something she can stick to through the valley of despair. That's clarity step 1. And then clarity step 2 is what I recommended Anita do. Scatter reminders in her day-to-day of that future life. So my cousin took this as exercise that she needs to work more on. And then so I turned back to Anita and I was like, okay, now we can start talking about your weight loss plan, meaning the vehicle you're going to take across the valley. After all, you don't want to be trekking through a jungle in a Toyota Corolla. You need the right vehicle to have a shot at making it across, right? So I was like, okay, so Anita, what's your plan? Anita said she wasn't totally sure of her plan. I asked, okay, what have you tried? She said, I've tried Atkins, which worked, but I kept falling off the wagon. It was just really hard having separate meals from my family. Eating low carb at social events was difficult, and I had a lot of late night cravings. I said, got it. What else have you tried? She said, I also tried calorie counting, which worked for a few months, but then it stopped working after 2 months. I said, okay, what else? She said that was pretty much it, then added she was looking into keto now. I said, okay, but you said you couldn't stick to Atkins. Keto is low carb on steroids. How is it going to be different? To which she replied, well, keto turns your body into using mainly fats for energy instead of carbs. And then, she told me more science that she had read about keto. After which I said, yeah, Sure, but lifestyle-wise, how are you going to avoid the same problems around social events, late-night cravings for carbs, and having separate meals from your family, like happens on the Atkins diet or any low-carb diet? She thought about it, and then she was like, do you have any tips on how to increase my willpower, maybe? And then I said, well, the habits you do to get to your goal are the same habits you have to do for the rest of your life to maintain. Do you want to be not eating roti and rice for the rest of your life? And then she replied, well, no. But I was thinking once I get to goal, I can maybe start adding some carbs slowly and stop if I see a huge weight gain. And then I was like, okay, so you think future you is going to have more willpower than current you. You are future you right now to a past you. Do you have more willpower now? She said, no. So what do I do? I said, well, it sounds like you tend to fall off plan because the plan you're following doesn't meet you where you're at right now. They all assume you'll suddenly change what you eat every day, be able to resist temptations at social events, and have figured out how to handle your cravings, right? She said, yes, but what about calorie counting, which stopped working even when I was doing it? I said, okay, do you still have the app you were using to track? Can we take a look? She pulled it up, and when we flipped through her last 3 weeks entries, it looked like she had skipped tracking on weekends. And on weekdays, she'd be on track every day, but even that was becoming hit or miss as we flipped through later and later weeks. She looked a little embarrassed and said, I'm surprised. I could have sworn I was way more on it. To which I was like, that's totally normal. I'm sure that even if you weren't tracking on weekends, you were mentally still thinking a lot about your food choices. And when things went sideways, you felt guilty and frustrated. She said, yes, totally. Even if I didn't track in the app, I was tracking in my head. I said, exactly. Our brain remembers effort even if it was just worry and not actual doing. This is why all of us confuse activity for productivity all the time. We think we're doing a plan when if we actually look, we aren't doing it. So going back to root causing what we know was absolutely not working for you, it sounds like it's hard to stick to these plans. Is that right? She said, yeah, that's what it looks like. Then I said, okay, so think of weight loss as requiring a list of skills to be successful. This list is pretty long. Examples: knowing how to handle cravings, knowing how to avoid temptations at social events, reading nutrition labels, grocery skills, cooking skills, keeping your cool even if things go sideways, getting back on plan quickly after things go sideways, knowing how to adjust your plan to keep making progress without making things too hard, knowing how to plan for vacations and life surprises, having a solid sleep routine, not letting family and friends sabotage your efforts, exercising to not lose muscle, exercising for heart health, and the list goes on and on. That's a lot of skills. Now, look at what keto or intermittent fasting or most diets tell you to do. They tell you what or when to eat and not to eat, but then assume you're already competent at all the skills necessary. Anita wasn't. I wasn't. I'm guessing you aren't either. Which brings me to point 2. You're doing the right things at the wrong time. Just like you don't start with calculus when learning math, you don't start by trying to master all the skills at once. Instead, we use the framework that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi describes in the book Flow, the psychology of the optimal experience. If you draw a graph where there's skill on the horizontal axis and challenge on the vertical axis, there is a diagonal tunnel in which we find flow. We feel challenged in a good way. We're not bored by it being too easy, but we're also not anxiety-ridden by it being too difficult. The skills we possess correlate closely with our body fat percentage. As you possess more and more of these skills, you naturally practice them and become leaner. So if you're in the unhealthy range, you're in this area here, where the higher your body fat percentage, the more toward the left you are. Now, notice that to keep inside the diagonal flow tunnel, you can at most increase your challenge to be 4% harder. This puts you at the border with the anxious region. But as you gain skills by conquering the 4% harder, you move to the border with the boredom region. At this point, you increase your challenge again by 4% and repeat the process. And then at the point where your skills and therefore body fat percentage is at your goal, you stop upping the challenge and ride the flow boredom border. Meaning you're no longer putting in focused effort into your weight loss, you're in maintenance. You have the time and energy now to start a new project like learning the piano or whatever you like. Now, if you map all the diets like keto, intermittent fasting, or whatever else you've tried, if you're like me, you've probably set targets way outside of the flow tunnel into the anxiety zone, which is why you burnt out. Anita replied that this all made sense, but how to set a 4% harder challenge exactly? I replied that the way to think about this is in a 3-pyramid structure. Why? This was point 1, the foundation, without which the pyramid can't stand. Middle is what, this is the target that must be 4% harder. The litmus test of whether a target is 4% harder is if it maps to making at most 1 to 2 changes to your eating and movement habits. Ideally, just 1 change. What I've found after coaching more than 900 people is this is a 15% calorie deficit. I've linked to a calorie calculator in the description below, which you can use to calculate your daily target. Next comes the top of the pyramid, the how. Anita immediately interrupted me with, "Please don't tell me a calorie counting app," in a voice that shuddered with horror. I said, "Okay, not just that, but first, what do you hate about tracking?" She replied, "It's just really tedious." I said, "If you think back, what specific moments caused you to stop tracking?" She said, "When I stopped losing weight despite tracking. It feels like I can't lose weight anyway, so I might as well go back to my old fun habits." Do you think if you expected to lose weight every 2 weeks instead of every week, you'd stick with it longer? She said, "Yes, but I think people lose weight every week if they're doing it right? I said, "Not necessarily." I drew this weight loss trend graph for her and said it's totally normal for things to slow down to every 2 or even 3 weeks, and getting stuck is also normal. She was like, "Wow, okay, if I knew this, then I would have stuck with it longer." I said, "Okay, so it's not tracking that's the issue. It's feeling like you're failing." She said, "Yeah, I guess that's true." I then said, "Okay, I'm guessing you also tend to stop tracking when you overeat and feel guilty." She said, "Yeah, that is the time I want to track things the least." I said, "That's very common and normal. It sounds like you don't hate tracking, you hate the feeling of failing." She replied, "Yeah, that's right. But also I start feeling like the obsession with numbers restricts my enjoyment of food." I said, "Well, when I look at the calorie deficit you were on, it was greater than 15%, meaning the number of habits you'd need to change was more than 2 to meet it consistently. It pushed you out of the flow tunnel. If you had 1 or 2 small changes to make in your eating habits, would you feel that way?" She said, "No, if it's just 1 or 2 small changes. But like I said, tracking is also really tedious. Is there a way to do this without tracking?" I was like, okay, that's what the diets like keto, Atkins, etc. try to do. They give you a clear list of what to eat and what not to eat, which is overkill because they don't have precise data that tracking gives them. But hey, by changing everything, you do lose weight. Problem is, it's too many changes at once and unsustainable, like you found out. With tracking, you get more fine-tuned feedback so you can adjust in a more fine-tuned way. It's like driving a car with the ability to go at a speed you're comfortable with versus a car that demands you go at 100 miles per hour no matter what. Ultimately, it's a matter of picking which problem you'd rather have. Cut all your favorite foods or tolerate the tediousness of tracking. To be clear, there is no right answer for everyone. You have to pick which trade-off you'd rather make. She said, "Well, cutting all my favorite foods didn't work, so I'd rather track in that case. And knowing now that this is the expected trend, I feel more confident to be able to stick to it. But what do I do at the points where things plateau?" I said, "Well, there are 2 things. First, you want to make sure it's a fat loss plateau. Since weight consists of both fat and lean mass, you're looking for fat loss to plateau, not weight to plateau." I pointed her to our free body fat tracker to help her with all of this. It's linked in the description if you want to use it too. And then if you find your fat loss has plateaued, then what you do next depends on each person's body. To be honest, without having the data in front of me, a general first experiment is to go back to maintenance calories for 2 weeks, during which you will gain some weight because of lean mass gain, not fat gain, and then go back to your 15% calorie deficit. If you plateau again after 2 weeks on this, then your maintenance calories have reduced. This happens as we get leaner. It's normal. So cut your target calories by another 100 to 200 calories and fat loss should resume. I'm not aware of anyone else who thinks of tailor-fitting weight loss journeys to each person like this. And if you're doing this on your own, the noise from other people may make you lose focus in practicing these 3 points. It's easy to get shiny object syndrome with every new fad that comes out. A lot of my clients have credited our community to shutting out all the confusion out there and keeping them focused and making progress. I'll share some of their stories in the next video, but in the meantime, if these points resonated with you and you'd also like to be in a community of like-minded people and have me help you find your tailor-fit plan, then check out the 5-minute free sneak peek into my Badass Body Boss program below. Or if you'd rather keep DIYing it, then check out this video where I go into depth into all 3 of these points and more. It's a step-by-step blueprint of our method and will save you the 10 years my co-coach Lucy and I spent figuring out sustainable weight loss. So don't miss the complete step-by-step breakdown here. And always remember, you can do it.